my husband watched a few commercials and he was like, well, I don't get that. Also, they're all in English. And he was like, what the hell's happening? And then he kept asking me like, how much does this cost? And like, why do they do that? And I was like, I'm going to get all the information on Tuesday. I'll get back to you.
Can you hear me? Is this
you sound great. Sound good now. You got those special fancy earplugs that you bring to the concerts.
That's it.
Mark has a case, like a special case that he opens up at shows. These like perfectly molded earphones come out.
Earplugs.
Shaped like his cochlea.
Yeah. I just feel like, Shai, for how much you need to wear earphones, why wouldn't you have that?
Because I just stuff earplugs in all of my pants.
Right. Well, okay. So here's an argument for them, and then because this could go on, for a long time. But it's like, exactly. You go to more shows than anybody I know. You listen more intently and notice more details than anybody. Yet you stuff pieces of foam in your ears. That just dulls the whole.
My earplugs are in a special case. Becky knows I'm very obsessed with my earplugs.
And Shai, you and I both have that weird itchy ear thing, probably from wearing like dirty AirPods and foamy like jean pocket earplugs.
But these are like $200. They're molded right to your ear.
Yeah, they're amazing.
And you can wear them however many shows.
You know what? People are always fetching they don't have Hanukkah presents for me.
Chris, you're so bougie.
No, listen. If you were gonna amortize that over a number of shows,
Shai probably spends $2,000 a year on those.
I bet that if we decided to undertake making a list of the things Shai has spent $200 on. that are less
7-Eleven delivery of Cocoa Krispies
that are less useful.
We would be here like for 2 days.
The Maxim Super Bowl party with Dad.
Guy Fieri's hot dog fest. It's a great idea that right before you have to go sit in a burning hot stadium for hours on end to go eat a bunch of chili dogs made by
Guy Fieri hot dogs.
To be honest,
I don't know how you and Dad did not get diarrhea. To be honest,
well,
I think your system you just shut down though because you were like, I can't.
Also, Dad and I were just nervously eating, those like roasted nuts, like that come in a cone. Those like cinnamon roasted nuts. We were just so stressed. We ate hot nuts and popcorn for that whole game. That could be why the Eagles lost. There was no cheesesteak option that was readily available. And welcome to a super episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast. What is now I think this is our 6th or 5th annual Super Bowl commercial roundup episode of the podcast with our expert advertising executive guru master, Mark Aronson. Welcome back, Mark.
Great to be here.
I've had a number of people ask me, is Mark doing the show this year? Who's doing the Is he doing the commercials episode? Gotta get that commercials episode out. So this is it. This is going to be a blockbuster.
People wait
episode.
all year.
Blockbuster episode. You should have got a celebrity, maybe.
Celebrity. You are a celebrity.
You are the celebrity.
Right.
You're the Ben Affleck of this podcast.
Yeah, or maybe the Ben Stiller, or maybe the Anna Faris, or maybe the John Hamm.
Well, I don't know about that Anna Faris one. I don't think we should be talking about that one like up front. That needs to be unpacked a little.
So we're talking about Super Bowl commercials, and I'll get this out of the way very quickly because if you really want to know how my experience going with Dad was, just go to my Instagram at Pancake4Table. There's a 90-second reel of Dad and I boogieing at the Maxim Super Bowl party.
I think enough said.
Eating at the Guy Fieri tailgate, singing the Eagles fight song in what was a great game. Bummer the Eagles lost, but it was a great experience. Everyone there was great. The fans were great from both teams, and we'll get them next year. But you can't. The legend of Patrick Mahomes is is large, and he did great. And I got to have one of the best weekends ever with Dad. And so thank you, Dad. And that'll be what I think about when I think about this weekend. Now, I didn't get to watch the commercials until I was on the plane ride home. I was too nervous before the game. So I cathartically I downloaded all of them from YouTube and watched them on the plane, which was a weird experience because there was no suspense. I watched them like they were.
That's how I do it every year when I don't watch the bowl. But this year I watched them live because I watched the Eagles. But I'm not going to stay up till 4 a.m. every year to see
a Toyota commercial. Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
if it was
and
a Dodge Ram commercial. All right.
Tampa not beat somebody else. So
big picture, we're really going to focus on our expert here, and then we'll throw in our opinions. Mark. The trends this year, what is the what was the advertisement like last year? It was obviously QR codes and crypto. Yes.
That talked extensively about that.
That's gone.
Year.
Our trip to South by Southwest shortly after the Super Bowl was a harbinger of that something bad was going to happen to crypto. Because all I saw there was people trying to sell NFTs of rabbits drinking carrot juice and twerking. So that seemed like a bad sign for crypto. But what's the big trends this year?
So in terms of content, celebrities, massive. There were 66 celebrities in Super Bowl ads.
Wow.
So massive. Right. And some of them
Mark hitting us with the stats. I love that.
I prepared.
66. And that's it's an uptick from other years.
Yes, that's an uptick.
Wow.
44 of them were men. 23 of them were people of color, just in case you want the rest.
Interesting. No, I want all.
But here's okay. But can I insert a question?
Sure.
In these stats, so you're saying you said 66 celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that 66 or is that 67 because Serena appeared in 2 different brands?
There. You know what? I don't have the answer, which is bonkers, by the way. Like
it's
that
bonkers that she appeared in a complete.
I have so many follow-up questions on that. Does it make it less effective for each one? Did they know they were both hiring her? Like, am I supposed to believe she drinks that much? Does she drink that much alcohol? Like, I have so many questions.
Well, typically there's a category exclusivity in terms of a deal like that. And it's possible they said, well, low carb beer and a Remy Martin are not actually in the same, you know what I mean? But I think, I don't know, it's quite strange, to be honest. I'm not
to be into alcohol commercial.
The most important thing about that commercial, though, the Michelob commercial, the Caddyshack one, which was fine, was while we were in Phoenix, I could not for the life of me figure out why there was one of the Super Bowl parties was hosted by Serena Williams and star of Succession, Brian Cox. Like, what is this pairing?
What is this? Oh, that's a great question.
And I love really Brian Cox, but who's showing up to see Brian Cox host a Super Bowl?
That's hilarious. But I have a question. Go ahead.
Wait,
go ahead.
No, it would be like if Lily and Dad went to a Super Bowl party together. It actually makes perfect sense.
I love tennis. But my question is...
Wait, Mark had an answer. Let him answer.
No. I was going to bring it back to the... So you go, Lily. I was going to bring it back.
Bring it back. You bring it back.
Okay, I'll just bring it back. I think to the point of Caddyshack, right? That's the other kind of big, I think, theme or trend is nostalgia. Like you saw it in all kinds of ways. Like either, old references, brands, celebrating anniversaries,
old even movies.
Right. You had Farmer's Dog, which is a new brand, but a very retrospect. So tons of kind of nostalgia, like as a theme. And it's sort of interesting, right? Because you had like the first Super Bowl of COVID, everything was very purposeful and we're going to get through this and we're going to help.
Yeah.
And then right last year we had kind of this, like, we're going to try to get into some jokes, you know what I mean? And then, this was, I don't know. I think the other thing, this isn't really a trend or a theme or whatever, but just noticing the reaction from the industry, like it's almost unanimously, like everybody whiffed it. Like the overall quality
no star.
Were kind of brutal. Not great. Okay. That's not to say there weren't good ads. There are, and I'm the last person to be critical of all the people working on it. It's just like getting a Super Bowl ad produced is like, the craziest thing you can do.
You have empathy for what they're going through.
You're paying $7 million for 30 seconds, which means what? That's like a $50 million project overall in
potentially
terms of producing it. And
there's two things. There's the investment of it. So $7 million is just for the time. Right. So now
you have to make the actual commercial and pay the celebrity.
And so if you're going to get your money's worth, then right. That's why you see all these celebrities. Well, let's pay $1 million for whatever, or we need other ways of capturing the interest and making this investment pay off. Because truthfully, $7 million at the moment, like it's almost it kind of
it's down.
It's off the graph a little bit, like in terms of a typical brand's media spend and media budget, and like $7 million, when it's $3.5 million, $4 million, $5 million. But now, right, it's jumped so significantly that like this is a massive investment.
Oh, okay.
And so
do you think that's affected the quality? Do you think that we're seeing worse commercials?
In a funny way, yes. Because I think what ends up happening, right, typically, right, the way most Super Bowl ads get made, and obviously I'm not talking about all, but typically, right, you have a brand, right, whoever it is, Netflix, GM, whatever, and there are people who work for the brand, right? We call them the clients, right? Those are the people in the marketing department of the company, and then there's an agency, right, who is tasked with coming up with the ad, the creative concept, whatever, and then helping to shepherd it through and get it made and that kind of stuff. And so what you have is people with pretty much aligned incentives, but not exactly. And you have people with different outlooks in terms of the role of creativity and what's going to work and what's most important and that kind of stuff. So you have, right, like an easy way of looking at it. And, this is overly simplified and too rudimentary, but like, the clients, this is from an analogy somebody told me once, right? The clients are the Bill Gates types. They think of themselves proudly as the Bill Gates, right? I'm going to research this. I'm on it. I need this to work. This is going to be effective, right? And the agency people are like, we're the Steve Jobs types. We're the visionaries. People don't know what they want, right? Okay, if I would have asked people what they want, they would have told me a better Discman or whatever, and right. so and they're suspicious of each other a little bit, despite potentially having great relationships and all
right.
But
also, as the stakes get higher with the more and more expensive commercials, you then do the safer bet, which is like, let's just put our money behind a celebrity that'll sell this maybe, and then we don't have to worry so much about paying them. I do have a smart commercial.
I do have to say I felt like the ones that were good this year were so good. The handful that I thought were good, and I thought they were so good because there was a sincerity to them. And so,
or like an honesty to them,
right? Like, there was something about it that like wasn't gimmicky, wasn't goofy, or like even if it was gimmicky and goofy, it was in a endearing, sweet way. It wasn't in the like, I got this crazy idea, and you just feel like a bunch of people slapping things on it. Like you can tell the ones where, and I'm going to say like, for example, the avocado Mexico, where it just felt like a bunch of people in a room and everyone needed to slap an idea on it, and no one was working together.
The avocado, the concept was, what if it was an apple in the Garden of Eden given by a crazy muskrat or squirrel, as opposed to an avocado instead of an apple, and what the world would be.
Again, and you're saying that, and then also
following
that logic,
and then
I'm
sorry,
I hate avocados
and then
because
also
of Becky, so.
You have, thank you, and then you also have a product that's like very proudly Mexican avocados from Mexico, very proudly, and it's like Anna Faris as
like not a single Mexican person,
like
maybe
there's no Mexican, but it just seemed so.
Well, okay, but before we,
I have a whole list. That doesn't have to be my worst. I have a whole list of worst, but the ones that were great, I felt were really great this year.
Back to the celebrities for a second. Does it matter that like we have Serena in 2 alcohol commercials? What matters more is that she's a sports person, obviously, and she's super famous, but that I don't buy for a second she's drinking either of those alcohols. That doesn't seem to matter.
I think that's what I'm saying. It does matter.
In some ways, so like, I guess, right, in some ways there are, like there used to be, like back in the day, like an actual endorsement, which is like,
right? Like that dishonesty is there a little bit, like what Becky's saying. Whereas I love the Affleck commercial because he drinks Dunkin' all the time.
Well, and this is a key thing, like that actually dovetails with what Becky is saying. So in two ways. One is like, and this is like a thing, like, growing up, I worked in advertising basically for 20 years. Right. And I worked on three, really actually two Super Bowl commercials. Like, right. So that's a big thing. Right. And celebrity has always been a thing, but now it's almost like table stakes because of the investment. So, but over and over and over again, everybody says a celebrity is not an idea. A celebrity is not an idea. A celebrity is not an idea. And so, and that's sort of back to what you're saying. Like, I think not only in terms of the sincerity, but there's an idea, like an actual cohesive idea, which makes sense for the brand. That you believe where it's coming from and is actually telling you. There's an old formula, right? Like an age-old formula for TV advertising when you had 30 seconds, which is right. You know what your audience is. You have an insight, right? Which is something that helps people kind of, a hidden truth. There's something that shows that you understand who you're talking about, right? And then you have the idea, right? Your unique selling proposition, or the thing that you're the thing that you're trying, the point you're trying to make,
like why this product.
Exactly.
Well,
right.
I think a great example of that is the Miles Teller one, where it's just someone stuck on hold and being goofy and dancing. And you can believe, like, while you're on hold, you might have a beer and you're getting silly and you're having fun. And then it happens to be Miles Teller, who all we wanted is to see him dance a little more. Like, we got Maverick earlier in the year, and now I just want to see him dance.
Let's see what Mark thinks of that.
Well, and we could talk. I don't know if you want to do it in this section or later. Just do it. Great.
Just
okay.
Whatever you
feel
want.
the flow. My sisters are clearly not looking at that.
I'm sorry. Right before the show started, you gave us very different directions than the outline itself, which was to ask Mark questions. So I'm technically following.
Use the outline. Okay. Go ahead.
But that's in my best. Are we not in the best section anymore? Are we in the worst?
Oh, we're
just go ahead with Miles Teller.
So I think, and that has been right. Because it's also it's fun to watch. It's a good ad. It's engaging. It's fun to watch. I actually don't know who Miles Teller is, so that was lost.
I'm sorry. Where do you live again? Under in a cave? Under a rock?
Top Gun Maverick.
Wait, where?
Top Gun Maverick. Okay, yeah. Okay. So
and he does a dance in it for a second in Maverick that it's been all like people are obsessed with it. It's literally a split second, and so they capitalized on that just to get him dancing the whole ad.
Okay, I buy that. So here's where I'm hung up on it as an advertising guy. And so again, the biggest thing in advertising, you have to keep telling yourself, you are not your audience, you are not your audience, you are not your audience, right? So I could see why, people are enjoying it and why it's one of the better ads. All right. But what they're telling you about Bud Light, right, is that it's easy to drink. And so, right, and that's the point they're trying to land about Bud Light, that it's easy. In Canada, you're not allowed to say that. You have to say easy drinking taste. But anyway,
right? You add any extra word. Easy drinking feet.
No, you can't tell people. You don't want to encourage people to consume it, so you can't say it's easy to drink, but you can say it has an easy drinking taste. That's a red herring. So right, they're trying to tell you it's easy to drink. In the world of beer, and especially light beer, there's what they call in the industry sessionability, and when a beer is sessionable, it means you can sit down and drink a lot of it at one time, like in a session, i.e., like, so you're going to go and watch a game, a football game or a basketball game, you can drink 6 of them or, whatever, and it's not too heavy and it doesn't get you too wasted and, that kind of thing. Because the key audience for a brand like Bud Light is what they call the heavies, quote unquote heavies, right?
So people who want to consume a lot.
Right. Those are typically young men who drink 20 or more beers a week.
And who saw Top Gun?
Well, in this case, that comes after. That comes after, right? So, So there's part of this, right? And so they're trying to make a point about it being easy to drink, and so this is like a bit of a long way for a ham sandwich to make that kind of point, despite it being very fun and
John ham sandwich.
Oh my! Don't even give me right. Right, and then the other thing, right, from an inside perspective that you see is like people are going bananas on the like industry fishbowl whatever about this idea being stolen, right? Because if you go on YouTube, there's a guy named Lennar Young.
Ooh.
And so
controversy on the podcast.
Right. Oh, and look, everything's kind of stolen in one way or another. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, that Grease was like a direct, right? But this is a guy, and it's much crazier and whatever, but who is like, what happens when you get put on hold? Same hold music. Like, you know, that classic hold music, except then, you know, he appears like playing the piano and like, you know, getting crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and so it's a, you know, so there's some, you know, and again, it's all insider. There wasn't anybody watching the Super Bowl who was like, wait a minute, is this from a 2-year-old YouTube, you know, or whatever? But anyway, it's worth mentioning that there's some.
Okay. So who were some of, so it does seem like from reading things that there's a sense that the commercials whiffed. There was a lot of nostalgia. Not only was a lot of nostalgia, it was unclear, like, I guess the nostalgia is now directed at us. Thank goodness I showed my kids Zoolander recently. Otherwise, like, I love Zoolander, but wow, way out of time. Where do
I've never even seen Caddyshack. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, that reference is lost on me. I'm, you know, more than 40.
Right, exactly.
So where do you think people nailed it?
Well, so I brought in something interesting. I don't know if this is helpful. I'm happy to just, you know, not go for it, not go here. But there's something. So it's interesting. Everything's subjective. There's the USA Today ad meter where people vote, and everyone's got their favorites. So I was just trying to see, like, is there a slightly different angle? You know, just for a little perspective, because I think it's funnest when we talk about the stuff that we you know love and don't. There's something. So for years, for generations, marketers have been trying to find ways of testing advertising and the effectiveness of advertising. And there's a million flawed methodologies where they show people something and give them a survey, right? And everybody's too rational to actually say. So there's something that began to be popular a few years ago called System 1. And it basically is, you know, this methodology uses the camera in your computer. It's at where they get a sample of people, a statistically significant sample of people, and they actually trace their facial expressions when they're watching
while they watch the ad.
While they watch the ad and get information from them and that kind of thing.
There's been a lot of confusion on my face.
Right. Many of the ads. And so, you know, their what do you call it? Their model, right? Because there's two types of decision making. System 1, which is your like intrinsic inside of your, you know, and then there's the System 2, which is your rational mind, where you convince yourself of something. So this was like, finally, we're going to find a way to find how people's brains actually.
We're going to read people's minds.
Right. So essentially, what they do is there's kind of a couple of things that are related that they do to measure this stuff, and essentially. It is about the emotional resonance of the ad. So they put three things basically together, which is people's emotional reaction to the ad, right? Because that is the thing that will help them remember it and help it stand out and help it make an impression on them. And then they add their recognition of the brand, or their response to the brand itself, which really favors known brands or you know, brands with really strong, what they call key brand assets, or like a lot of equity, right? And then they add something called fluency, which is basically kind of the recognition of the product and the brand, that kind of thing. Anyway, so they put it all together, and they released their they did a thing where they measured the top 10 ads of the Super Bowl.
Ooh,
cool.
This is exciting.
Ooh.
All right.
In terms of how well it actually worked. And again, this isn't definitive. There's a million, there's
our list is the definitive one.
We have the right list.
Right. So there's some interesting ones, and then there's some ones
Only
that are really...
Jesus is number one.
No, Jesus is not number one, but I really want to talk about that.
Okay, well, do Jesus
next. We have to make sure we talk about Jesus next.
Okay, so I'll tell you, why don't I just tell you the top 5 or whatever?
Yeah.
Is that helpful, right?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So number 5, you guys are gonna, right. Number 5 was that Jeep ad called Electric Boogie.
Is that the one with Shaggy?
With these CG animals that look all like they're a cocaine bear. That was terrible.
They're dancing.
That was this was 5 most liked.
No. So 5 most effective, right? So
effective doesn't necessarily mean best or liked.
Right, based on the formula of the emotional resonance that it had with people,
the brand recognition, and the fluency.
The brand.
Yeah, exactly right.
So
exactly
Electric
right.
Boogie Jeep. Which is, by the way, if you remember,
it looked like it was made by an algorithm. It literally looked like.
Well, but last year, if you remember, Jeep was your biggest dog of last year. Our sound clip we released was you talking about how Jeep did meat in the middle and what the hell was meat in the middle. This is a fascist fighting machine. So this year they went with dancing animals and they crushed it.
I mean, look, not to break it down, because I don't want to get, because I agree. And to me, the stupidest part of that is like, oh, there's a charging station where there would never be a charging station. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, and here we are in the middle of the wilderness. Right? There's a charging station.
Most people's problem with the electric cars is.
But I think, and again, I don't have insight into how it broke, but the Jeep in and of itself, like the shape, the truck itself is an icon.
Oh, for sure.
So people know it's a Jeep all the way through the ad, and their expectation that a Jeep takes you, on an adventure far out of the thing where other cars don't go, is all kind of right in line. And then I think they made it really fun, and people probably looked at it and their faces were like, when they, with all, whatever.
Like, I don't know what animals look like.
This isn't perfect science. Like, it's really not. And I'm not trying to.
So who's number 4?
Okay. So number 4, was an Amazon ad called Saving Sawyer, which is about that dog, that tears up.
That was cute. That was cute.
That was just a good twist.
They're gonna give him away,
or you think they're just gonna crate him? You think they're gonna crate? He's gonna say crated when they're not home.
But he gets a friend,
right?
Puppy friend.
And look,
wait, they sent a dog by Amazon? I didn't see that.
No.
They've got a crate.
You think he's gonna be crated, or maybe they have to give him away, or.
But the big reveal is they actually bought the crate for a dog friend, another dog that they bought to be this dog's friend.
So he's not destroying the whole house. He has a friend.
And so, again, like that is, I think, it's an emotional story, like exactly like Becky, right? And it builds really well, right? And then Amazon is like literally in the ad when they are ordering the crate, like you actually have the screen where the crate is, and so it's intrinsic. And so that's another thing that I would say is, like, to be honest, and I'm not trying to be, snobby or whatever, but the craft was missing in a lot. That sounded just so pretentious. I don't mean it.
No, please, that's why you're here.
This is what we bring you here for.
No, we need you to say that. We can't say that.
I'm not trying to use the word craft, like, but there are ways.
It's an artistry, man. We agree with that,
right? It's supposed to be a story. It's literally a piece of film.
Serena doesn't even drink the alcohol in the ads.
No, but even so, like
she's not allowed to. That's illegal.
I get it.
Not allowed to do that in advertising.
Guys, what I'm getting at though is, like, literally this was written and timed, and it built in intensity, and then it had a thing, and then it had a reveal, which gave you a little surprise at the end. But like there's like, do you know what I mean?
The craft.
Back in my day, it used to be when I started in advertising, copywriters who were doing scripts, everybody had a stopwatch at their desk because you knew you had 30 seconds to work with, and you would time it. You would time out your dialogue. You would time out. You would time out to make sure. Right. And look, I'm not saying people don't use stopwatches so everything's gone to shit, but there just isn't. And especially when we're dealing with celebrities and you're dealing with all these, there a lot of the ads that I think we saw. It felt hasty. The jokes weren't good. Like you know what I mean? Like that John Hamm, like it's just like, it's not great writing, or you didn't have a payoff at the end, or you didn't have. And so I think this was like, it worked as a, there's a bit of a formula to why these things work, and that worked. So this one I can't fucking, excuse me. This one
you can get as expletive as you need to.
Number 3, I cannot believe, which was called New Year, New Neighbor, and that is the T-Mobile ad with the guys from Scrubs and John
Travolta. That was
that's
a nostalgia.
The
Bradley Cooper one more.
Oh, the Bradley Cooper one was so funny.
So
that
delicious.
one was great.
Okay. Here's
but that John Travolta, that was unacceptable. Someone should pay me $7 million to watch that.
Olivia Newton-John just died. I just feel like
it felt in bad taste.
It was so grim.
Okay.
So here's what my case. I did not like it. This one was terrible. But my case for that commercial is, or just the questions I have and the case I have is like, number one, they've been using Zach Braff and Donald Faison all year, which unless your kids watch Scrubs, most people are watching this being like, who are these two old guys that are friends that are always doing stuff together?
As a funny aside, you know where I watched Scrubs? In that crazy apartment you had in Guatemala.
That was my big travel show.
DVDs.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I was like home in the mornings waiting for you to like.
So
finish
it's just
work.
you two recognizing JD and
exactly.
The grimness, the morbidness of John Travolta doing this, right? Because here's I'm playing out the story. Sandy is dead, and Danny Zuko has now moved into a town for like divorcee dads, where JD and Turk live also, right? Because JD's relation, I mean, maybe he's still with.
Look, Shai, your backstory about this.
And
about
so
this commercial
is
too much. Like that's the problem. If that's how far, but I think it's the nostalgia. People are suckers for that song and Travolta, so they're like, oh,
it's almost not recognizable.
That's it on its face, right? They had everybody looked like they were having a good time. John Travolta actually pulled off this like whatever move or whatever, you know what I mean? And people are like, oh my, look at these guys, wow.
John Travolta still has it.
But I mean, it's shocking to me. I think that was one of the absolute worst things I've ever seen.
Amazing.
Number two, and this one is interesting, and because I want to note the placement. Number two is called Back for Good, and this was the M&M's ad where they resolved right after the game. This whole thing of like they replaced
the clams and Maya Rudolph and the woke and the very complex political story.
I didn't understand
that at all.
It's too complicated of a storyline.
Way too complicated, and I think that's a perfect example of people at the brand and the agency trying to like, okay, it's going to be the Super Bowl. We're going to concoct this thing, and we're going to make use of the run up to the Super Bowl, and we're going to say we're killing the spokespeople. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they killed off Mr. Peanut, by the way. Like this is like a thing. We're going to get all this attention.
Yeah, and Josh killed the yellow crayon at Crayola.
That's it. Right.
He retired. He didn't kill him. Retired him. He went on like
it would have been cooler.
Whereas I love the Mr. Peanut roast. I love the Mr. Peanut roast.
Well, and that was a way, right, where they're hoping you'll do the QR code and then go and watch more content and be engaged with the brand.
I've watched the other roast bits. They're funny.
Right. That's where I feel like the QR works, because you're like, this is hilarious. I'll keep watching.
Right. There's something in it for you. Right. So this, to be honest, one of the worst performing ads of the was that clam, M&M clam, Maya clam, because it didn't make any fucking sense.
Right. They spent $7 million for like a bit.
Right. Not only was it a bit, like that ad in and of itself didn't make any sense. It's predicated on you understanding and already knowing that Maya Rudolph has taken over from the spokes things, which, there was a bunch of publicity about it, but 100 million viewers, is not right. And then so it didn't make any sense. And then so here, right, this one which is the number two performing was this M&M's, and it basically now the iconic characters return. So it's super well branded. They do exactly what you did. They give you a joke, right? It's a warm welcome and everybody feels great about it and they know exactly what this ad. I'm not saying it was the best ad.
It's like a Coca-Cola Classic moment, like the return to Coca-Cola Classic from New Coke.
I guess so. Like it was,
but it was all.
But were the M&Ms wasn't
rude.
the big complaint that the M&Ms were sexy? Were these
Was it
M&Ms
Tucker
sexy?
Carlson?
Wasn't there a whole thing about them not being sexy enough anymore?
So basically what happened was
desexualized the M&Ms.
They would desexualize
Right.
They,
M&Ms.
So
instead of wearing high heel boots, they put the female M&M in sneakers.
Right. So
she
it
wasn't
turned into
sexy
a woke, Tucker Carlson took it as a woke culture war.
Because it's woke for
talking
women to
point
wear
or whatever.
sneakers.
So then essentially, like, I don't know how good this advice was. The brand jumped on it to say, okay, let's say and get all this attention for saying we're actually going to get rid of the spokespeople. We understand, right? And they put out this statement, which is like, it's too controversial. We don't want any controversy. So we're going to place it with somebody who's not controversial, Maya Rudolph, right? And then they kind of played on that. And then truthfully, the Maya Rudolph, according to this, was literally the rock bottom performing ad, which makes sense because nobody understood what the hell was going on. You have clams reference, like it was such a weird, and then anyway, so the resolution, I guess, carried more weight for people and whatever.
Okay.
And then this one it's a bit of a letdown, right? But I understand it. No, it was the Disney 100th anniversary kind of retrospective.
Okay.
No. I gotta say, my husband, who worked for Pixar, Disney for 11 years, who has literally a heart made of stone when it comes to this stuff, like does not react whatsoever. He watched that with me and he was like, oh, wow, I guess
Getting the feels.
It's a good reminder of all the incredible films Disney has made over the years.
I think
very important.
It makes
moments.
sense to me that's why people reacted, because you got parents, you got people like people who watch as children's,
That's in my best list.
Yeah, you really hit a lot of demographics with that one.
Yes, right. Exactly. And that's why, right. And the thing
literally
is,
for everyone.
Right. It's for everyone. It's all these amazing moments from all these things that people are attached to and they love. So it's naturally emotional, like literally from the get-go. You don't have to build, you don't have to. And everything they show is literally a quote unquote key brand asset, right? Because it's a Disney thing. And so the whole thing, you're like, that's
it's kind of, it's a bit of an easy. They didn't do
any of the deep cuts from the live action 70s Disney movies. There was no black.
It's a bit of an easy one to make in a way, because it's a win-win in a lot of ways.
That's right. And so, it was really, obviously it worked amazing. All this fluency and and then if you look at the face trace or whatever, like, right as Encanto comes in, like it's, people are already it worked. And look, like most brands can't do that. Like it's just not possible.
Tide, there's only so many editions of Tide people know.
Exactly.
Disney owns everything, so they can put everything in the ad.
But also, like,
that was his one joke. He's like, and we made Star Wars, which we just bought a couple of years ago, but it still counts.
Right. Exactly.
So most brands don't have that type of equity, or that kind of, like, to the example of Tide, like, you don't spend your amazing moments like with your family thinking about Tide, like you do watching a movie or whatever. So it's a bit unfair because nobody
has an unfair advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Before we talk about Jesus, because I want to do the He Gets Us next, but just can we have a shout out for Dave Grohl in Crown Royal? Thank you, Canada.
4 Canadians here.
Yes.
4 Canadians here. Again,
top one.
Awesome.
Amazing.
And that man's had a
Amazing.
very hard year. Lost his best friend. It was great to see him not only and this maybe comes back to the authenticity. If you know anything about Dave Grohl, he loves Rush. He loves, he is someone who would love Canada.
It was a very sweet commercial. Yeah. And what was it, alcohol? I don't care.
It's Crown Royal.
It was Crown Royal.
Like it, but it's sort of like, it didn't matter. The message was received.
Isn't the Bronfman Crown Royal?
Granted, I'm very influenceable in whatever. I'm easy to influence. I love marketing. Like, yes, give me a good commercial, I'll buy your product. That left me leaving. Like, the feeling I had was, if I went to a bar and ordered a Crown Royal, I'd be like, yeah, I love Canada. I'm going to drink some Crown Royal and prove that to everyone. Like, it worked. 100% worked on me.
Which is interesting, right? Because we're all Canadian, and it gave us a soft spot and some pride and that kind of thing.
Well, I wonder how the Americans felt.
Right. Because it's interesting, like, and again, this is one of these things, like, they're trying to tell you something true and unique about the brand, right? And so Crown Royal is Canadian whiskey.
That one.
Right. And so I guess I wonder, like, is that your angle? Like, we're going to associate it with all these other awesome Canadian inventions and people and bands and say thank you. Like, maybe that is. So I want to say two things about that. One is, if you remember, back when we were, college, or some of you high school, remember Molson had that, the rant,
wasn't that the beginning? Canadian. Wasn't that at the start of your advertising career? Isn't that sort of you chased down Molson to join that crew?
A big part of my first job in advertising was working at the agency that made that ad, getting copies of it made and put onto like VHS tapes or 3/4 inch, literal tapes, and then mailing them to people who had requested it because they wanted to show it like at their town's like parade.
Wait, what was Canada the ad?
Day. Or, this was it was a guy, and he says he comes in, it's a monologue, and he says, all of these things, it uses the United States as a foil, where he says, I have a prime minister, not a president. The beaver is a truly noble animal. The Chesterfield is a couch, right? And he builds and builds and builds, and he says, "I'm Joe, and I am Canadian," right? And then that was Molson's tagline at the time, "I am Canadian." They went back to it. It was this. It came actually I don't mean to sidetrack us. The impetus for it was they noticed this massive surge of Canadian pride surrounding the Tragically Hip's performance at Woodstock 99, right, where people were there with their flags,
which is like the worst Woodstock ever, but that part was good. They were at Woodstock 99. That's the one that they make the horrible documentaries about, but the Hip was cool.
Right. So the Hip, and it was a daytime set, and there was just a sea of Canadian flags wherever it was, and people were like, look at this pride that hasn't been tapped into. Anyway, so they did that, and then they went, from there on all this kind of stuff. And there were some similarities in terms of Canadian inventions and all, as the campaign kind of went on.
It was great.
And what was interesting was people loved it, and and it represented them, and they got it tattooed on their bodies, and they they asked for copies of it to show them, but it didn't really help them sell that much beer. Because at the moment of truth, when you're at a bar and you want to impress somebody, or you want to feel like you're a cool person, or whatever, like
you order a Stella,
right? Or a Keith, or whatever it was at the time. Like, is that your thing? Do you want to come walking over to a girl being like,
like, here's a Sleeman's Honey Brown.
Okay, all right. We got to talk about He Gets Us.
Right. Okay. So first, two things. I think we need to acknowledge like the actual roots and funding for this work, right? Which is an organization, which is technically a nonprofit, heavily funded by Hobby Lobby, which is, anti-LGBTQ, anti-abortion, right? The list goes on. Exactly, sort of what you would expect from, in today's day and age, like a Christian, national whatever organization,
right?
So which is I think we just need to put that on the table.
A conservative Christian
organization. The second thing to put on the table, right, is when you do consumer research, if you're doing focus groups or whatever, it's very important when you're talking to people to understand their relationship with the brand. So there are some people we call active users or whatever who buy the brand all the time, love it. There's some people we call lapsed users who, they've bought it before, but they haven't bought it recently. And then there's a group of people who are rejectors of the brand, who won't buy it. Not necessarily because they don't like it. They might have something else that they use regularly instead, but it's not for them. They're not interested.
It's like what happens with Pepsi.
Right. Gotcha. Or right. And so those are the people we don't talk to, right? Because it feels like you're not going to hear useful things to get people to buy stuff because they're for one reason or so. I should just put my cards on the table. Like, I'm a brand rejector for Jesus at the moment.
We're all Jews. We like him as a guy, but we're not signing up to the religion.
Right. So I'm just saying, right. So that, this is you can take that as a context for the. But what really I have to say, the one I think it was the second one,
with the conflict,
which ended with right. Jesus loves the people we hate, right? All of it. So first of all, it was quite striking, right? In the sea of all these like celebrities goofing, right? It was quite striking. And then what I was thinking of it like strategically, like if you had to write an advertising strategy to reframe the way people think, because truthfully, like in many ways, like Jesus, Christianity, etc., has a difficult, potentially reputation at the moment, like in
a
terms
rebrand,
of evangelical.
is what you're saying.
Kind of a thing. Like often what you're trying to do with advertising is reframe the way somebody thinks about something. Because if people thought about the brand the way you want it, or people were doing what you wanted, you wouldn't really,
you would be selling enough.
Right. So I just thought, with all those things taken in, like just as a piece of advertising strategy or as a piece of communication, it's quite interesting as a take.
And I would say without knowing who the funder is, right? So I like accepting the fact that there's a certain amount of manipulation. If you don't follow the website, which is you've mentioned, a lot of people don't take action, but the idea of sending a message that ties back to, I know a lot of Christians who are extremely tolerant people. I know a lot of Christians who, and there are a lot of things that Jesus taught that are extraordinarily valuable. We were always raised in our house by our dad, who is almost a rabbi, to look at the positive things that Jesus taught. If I take that in a silo, right, with no context, which a lot of people have no context when they're watching the Super Bowl, right? And I look at for the message there, it could be illuminating that to be a good Christian, you need to be tolerant, right? Now, I don't know if that's what Hobby Lobby is trying to achieve or whatever, but that is not an inherently negative message. And I do think the way it was presented was effective. I've seen a lot of rage about, religions advertising.
That's how I feel.
My feeling is that if
separation church and state, people, I don't need to have your religion.
That's what the government. This is private.
The government.
I just think they ban. They
separation of sports and religion.
The Super Bowl denies like I think they denied the affair website, right? The website for like like where you go to have an affair. They wanted to do
yeah.
With like an adult performer. And I'm just saying this. I'm like, if you're going to have religions, and you're going to have nonstop gambling, and I did some fun prop bets during the thing, but like these apps, like they have sort of some don't be safe gambling ads, and then they constantly barrage you with offers to bet and emails, right? So you're talking about like, so you got religion, you got gambling, you've got intoxication nonstop. I'm like, but we're drawing the line at people having affairs. We're drawing the line. Like, I'm sure OnlyFans wouldn't be allowed to have an ad, right? So,
but that's because that's the problem with the United States.
Well, the United States, the NFL decides. Doesn't the NFL decides who can?
Money,
Fox decides
religion, good. Yeah, it's sex bad. So, money,
bodily autonomy bad.
But I don't object to
Jesus good.
The images in there. All right.
No, I mean the ad itself. How can I say the ad itself? Was beautiful. I think that if it instead of Jesus, it was like just like peace,
right? Like be nice,
just like be nice, and not like.
Or if you are a true Christian, believe in tolerance, and like that's what.
And that's where the power of it is, right? Because I think what has happened, like I think if you were a Christian person, or you are a lapsed Christian person, or somebody in terms of your relationship with Jesus, right? You might in this day and age, like there's so many things in terms of. Right. Where you're seeing like actually the behavior of the Christian right in some cases like feels intolerant or feels and then so something to say like actually Jesus loves the people you hate, like it's a massive reframe just from a communication exercise.
So the real question is it a rebrand or is it instructions? Is it instructions to Christians to be tolerant, or is it a smokescreen?
It's hypocrisy.
To say,
it's smokescreen because the people who are funding it don't believe in that.
Okay.
Well, right, and it takes you somewhere. It asks you to visit the website and
then what's funny is if you Google that website, you go to this website that looks exactly like it. That is a he gets us website that exposes everything. It's really confusing.
Like also like then with the Scientology ad, it's like really. I think it's a bit much. Oh. If you're not going to let me see how people can have affairs, I don't want your religion pushed on me during a football game.
Can I mention? Can I mention?
Go for it.
One other one.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Is it going to be the Workday one?
Well, okay. I did want to mention that one, which I'll do quick. Can I mention two?
Yeah. Mention two. Okay. So here's what we're going to do because we want to be conscious.
We're running out of time. Sorry.
You'll do your two. And then I'm going to do a quick fire because this is a movie podcast, and we're going to run really quickly through. I have a plan to run really quickly through the movie trailers because those were some of the best commercials we saw. They have
totally agree. Okay, so Workday is I think worth mentioning and interesting because again, like we were talking about before, like the craft, like that's a good ad, right?
Which one was Workday?
That was where you had actually on Paul Stanley from Kiss. And right, they're basically telling
don't call yourself
overuse
the
word
rock star. Like not everyone in HR or whatever.
Basically like these rock stars being like, no, we're the rock stars. Don't stop calling each other rock stars, right? Mm-hmm. Which is like such a workplace thing. It's like
lingo
and so insincere.
Oh, maybe it's because I don't work with people or in an office.
It's like
I'm like
the people you work with are on this phone call.
Yeah,
right.
True.
It is such like trope of office working, which is like that person is a total rock star, and which is a compliment saying like, but what you're saying is like they always come through and they perform at a really high level at the office. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so I just thought it was quite funny. Like it had an idea in it.
I'll say this: I heard a story today because I was talking about it. I heard a story that the night after, so Monday night, there was an event that some people I knew were attending, and a very like a senior person at the company. So not sort of just an average person, but not someone you'd expect to have watched every Super Bowl commercial. Introduced someone as a rock star, and then said, "Oh, I guess we're not supposed to say that anymore." So it's like immediately
it's worked. It's
in the bloodstream. Whether or not that person then goes, "Hey, go order that HR software."
Well, that's the other thing. That's the other interesting piece of it. What they sell is like almost impossible to explain. It's a cloud-based enterprise software solution that lets you keep track of your HR training, finance. You know what I mean? So it's like they're in kind of a funny position.
So niche,
right?
I mean, it's so niche.
But it's obviously they obviously have a big enough potential audience.
Right.
Well, in this case, they have two audiences. They have the person who is going to be making this recommendation in their company, like the head of HR, the head of finance, or whatever it is, the CFO. And then there is the actual approver of it, right? The CEO, the CFO, the president, whatever it is. And so in some cases, having this name out there that people have heard of it and they have a good feeling about it.
When they do have to make that decision,
right,
they'll maybe defer to the better commercial.
It's helpful, right? And the other thing is like, look, I'm sure all the time these guys spend a ton of money on LinkedIn ads and following people around the internet with programmatic advertising, to be like, oh, need help with your payroll, blah. And so this was an opportunity.
Explanation of this.
Like, I mean, truthfully, I was on their website and like I
can't figure it out.
Like I don't even know, but and so because otherwise, if this is an opportunity for an incredible amount of awareness, if you can stick the branding, which that's questionable in this case, and so, but it's a nice opportunity to be like, okay, like they said, HR and finance rockstar, like literally 10 times, throughout the thing. So you're probably like, okay, if I'm an HR person, you might already be familiar with Workday. It might be one of the things you've been considering, or you soon will be because, right, as you start searching for stuff, we're going to follow you around the internet and remind you. And so, and it just was, it had the craft, like it had, right, had this moment in it where Ozzy Osbourne is sitting like in a white.
That's really funny. I'm
Oswald. Goes around, he's like, I'm Oswald. The person's like, hi, Oswald. You know what I mean? Like it was nicely. Anyway, so I thought that was cool. Okay, the other one I just want to mention. I'll literally take 30 seconds.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Tubi.
Tubi.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Tubi. So I just watched that one. That's aggravating.
So it's interesting for one reason.
I fell for it. 100%. And I was sitting by myself on the couch.
Well,
I fell for it. I screamed.
And I screamed. I was like, who touched everything?
Right. It's disruptive, and it got everybody's attention because right, that's the whole point of these Super Bowl ads in many ways, which is this is your chance to have an audience of 100 million people all at one time, right? Which now is impossible in any other way, right? Whereas, when Friends was on air, they got 40 million viewers for Friends every week, right? Now that the Grammys this year had 12 million people. Right. So being able to reach people at scale is virtually impossible.
It doesn't happen anymore.
Right. So you can understand the decision making here, which is, okay, we have 100 million people. How do we make sure we are noticed? It's like, I don't know, fucking with them is like really always,
great. I mean, it worked.
But so anyway, I thought it's just worth mentioning.
That's
okay. I thought it was great.
Okay.
I thought it was great.
So we are a movie podcast. This is what we're going to end on. We're going to end on a lightning round, buy, rent, or miss. So I'm going to say a thing, buy, rent, or miss. One person will make their case for it. And I'm just going to upfront just say with the Flash, okay, why do I need the Flash when I could just give me a Michael Keaton Batman movie?
I jumped out of my actual seat.
Oh, if you've been following Nerd Traffic,
I 100% don't follow anything to do with superheroes.
Yeah, Lil, if you've been following Nerd Traffic, Lily, if you've been following Nerd Traffic, you would know DC, that was coming.
On top of it, if I already don't give a shit about Marvel, I give less a shit about DC.
Also,
I give a shit about Keaton. I give
so much
controversy
around
Ezra Miller is
very
at the center of some very bad
yes.
allegations, and it'll be really interesting to see what James Gunn is going to do. But I would assume that they will use this Flash to offload him. Also, I'm a little bit sick of the Flashpoint story. This will be the third time I will have seen it like on television in like 5 years. All right, so the Flash, buy, rent, or meh. Lily,
the ad. Not the movie or Ezra Miller. The ad, going to buy Michael Keaton. Yes, buy. I flipped out when I saw that.
Mark?
Buy?
Yeah.
Becky?
I mean,
sure, yeah, I'll buy it because it had Keaton in it.
All right.
Given that movie a big play.
I see. I'm going to rent because I know it's like a misdirect. He'll be in it for 5 minutes and like it'll be so annoying.
But I like
Guardians of the Galaxy 3. What looks like their final voyage, maybe. I don't know.
Meh. Do not care.
Oh,
why is it sad? I'm sorry. I watch Guardians of the Galaxy to have
laugh.
Fun.
That whole ad looks like everybody.
Why is this a drama? Why is this movie a drama?
Needs a Prozac and like an hour of therapy and some meditation, some mindfulness. Okay. I'm not here for that.
Indiana Jones and the Fleabag of Destiny.
I love her. Done. Bye. There. Yes.
I basically. Oh wait, I'm jumping in. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, we paused to let you speak.
Sorry,
you had the music.
Ignored Shai's rule.
Okay, yeah, give the music. Okay, so for me, my answer is the odd number Indiana Jones movies are really good. So, so I'm excited.
Amazing.
Fast X, which is Vin Diesel versus Aquaman.
Went to go get something to eat during that commercial, and it was 15 minutes long. So it was like watching a whole movie that I never want to watch. So I'm done. Meh.
I don't know. I think this is real. I think this series is aging great in the later years. I like
Fast
9.
and the Aquaman. Is that what you call it?
Fast and the Aquaman. Okay. Scream, aka Scream in the City, aka Screams like aliens, because it looks like there's just a lot of.
I don't. Again, meh. It's not.
Jenna Ortega, I'm on board.
She's great.
I'll rent it.
But they can't kill Gale Weathers off. If they kill Gale Weathers off. I'll be annoyed. Okay, Transformers: Rise of the Beast. We're back in retro Transformers. This one takes place in the 90s and features
Optimus
Mirage.
Primal is very important to my family because I have a 6-year-old boy and he loves this crap. So because of Shai. So I have to buy it because I probably will buy it.
Okay.
Literally, and watch it with my kid. So
it seems that since they did the Bumblebee movie, they realized that maybe they should make the Transformers a little bit like they were when we were kids, and so
I don't know. So
the retro feel is a little intriguing. The Bumblebee movie with Haley Steinfeld was good. Mark, what about you?
I'm
sure you guys are going to go see Beast Wars in the theater, right?
Oh, totally, totally. Becca's a real buyer for Transformers. But one of the interesting things, right, as in the end card at the end of that ad, right, the O in Transformers turned into the Porsche logo, which is
right, because Mirage is a Porsche.
And so
that's like a triple advertising. That's some serious product placement.
So I don't know. I'm intrigued.
That's
but
cool.
I'm probably not going to see it.
All right, 65.
Bye. But
alien
driver on any
theory?
planet at any time, anywhere, in any marriage, I'm there for it. Whatever he's doing, buying.
Did you like him in that commercial where they clearly wanted Keanu Reeves and then
but they just got him?
they could only get Adam Driver.
Yes, I like him in anything. Done.
Okay.
Yeah, a huge buy. It spurred a big conversation about, in our Super Bowl watch party about love for Adam Driver. So yeah. There was a lengthy conversation.
Any movie he's in.
Bye.
I'm going to rent it. I don't like those kind of movies.
Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm going to rent it. I don't like
and
those
the Furious.
Kinds of movies.
I'll rent it. That's like a good rent.
And now Creed 3, we've seen a few ads for this already. I'm already excited for it. So I don't feel like
that's a buy. That was not a big reveal of the Super Bowl.
And then now I want to put the context. There's the Super Mario Brothers animated one, but SNL just did this dystopian future version with Pedro Pascal.
I'm buying that one.
I want to see that one. This one looks all right with the old school music and the plumber ad.
The one that's a plumber ad? Yeah,
that was that one.
Yeah, I buy that because that's so smart and hilarious, but I will never see that movie. But I buy the ad. I thought that was great. That's super creative.
Sure your son sees that movie.
I'm sure you will.
All right. We want to thank our amazing guest.
Oh my gosh.
Mark Aronson.
The questions, we could go on forever, Mark.
King of the advertising world. Back again.
So many questions.
Thank you for being here. Do you want people to follow you?
You're not going to get much out of it, but
No, you got it. If you want to hear his advertising insights, come to this episode once a year.
That's it.
You want to advertise during this $7 million for a 30-second read.
That's it. But I am on Twitter at MarkAronson.
Cool. And Becky, where can people follow you and Lily?
At FNM Sisters on Instagram. And you can see all the stuff Lily posts about us.
And you can follow me. And you can follow me at Pancake the number 4 table on Twitter and Instagram. All the Friday Night Movie shenanigans at Fry Night Movie and FryNightMovie.com. Theme song is by What Does It Eat? Thank you again to our amazing guest.
Thank
Mark
you.
Aronson.
This was so fun.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.